desensitized from the horrible situation they were in.
Welcome to Prism of Torah with Rebbe Saf Aaron Prisman, engaging Divrei Torah, packed with stories and practical insights. Find us wherever you get your podcasts or at prismoftorah.org.
Shalom Avracha. In this week's Parsha, Parshas Va'era, at the beginning of the Parsha, there's a dialogue between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Moshe Rabbeinu, as HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling him, play by play, what he expects him to do as he will become the leader of the Jewish people to take them out of Mitzrayim. And in Perek Vav, Pasuk Vav, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling Moshe Rabbeinu, Lachen emor levnei Israel, hence please tell Klal Yisrael, Ani Hashem, I am Hashem, and I will take you, ve'otzeti etchem mitachat sivlot Mitzrayim, and I will take you from under the burden, the pain, the suffering that Mitzrayim are putting you through. And the question begs itself, what's the word tachat, under? It seems not to be used correctly, or even more so, it seems to be redundant. Why is it there? What does the word mitachat sivlot Mitzrayim, what is it teaching us, and why is it there? It should have just said, I will take you from sivlos Mitzrayim, away from sivlos. What's tachas sivlos Mitzrayim? Before we answer this question, I want to share with you an insight I heard from Rav Galinsky. He shared the following insight he heard from Rav Shlomo Shvaldon. One morning, like he always did, he used to put his tefillin on his talis and walk through Sha'arei Chesed to get to the shul B'Knesset Agra. Over there he davened. And as he was getting closer, he could sense a very, very bad smell. And he realized the sewage work that started the night before wasn't complete. And people were still working there. He couldn't take it. So he plugged his nose so that he won't feel the bad smell or sense the bad smell. And he continued walking. You're not allowed to have your tefillin on in such a place or think Torah. So he tried to hide his tefillin as much as he could. And he walked fast to get to the shul. On the way back, he realized they're probably still there. And hence, he took his tefillin off and his talis and he covered it and walked there. And to his amazement, he couldn't believe it. He's not even able to breathe properly there from the foul smell. And yet, he sees the workers sitting on the edge of the sewage hole, sitting there with their legs dangling in, where the smell is at its best, and eating. He could not believe it. What's pshat? Obviously, they have become used to and accustomed to the conditions that are not normal for the average person. They adapted to the situation. The Chidushei HaRim explains that this is precisely the situation where Klal Yisrael got to in Mitzrayim. They were on such a low, they were so used to the torture they were going through there, both physically and spiritually, that they already adapted to the situation. They were desensitized from the horrible situation they were in. They were so engrossed in their horrible situation that they were no longer sensitive to how degrading and awful their lives have become. With that, the Chidushei HaRim explains, the lashon of sivlois, coming from the shoresh sevel, it's true that a lot of times it means suffering and pain, but sivlois can also have another meaning, which in Lashon HaKodesh and in Hebrew it's used today, lisbol, to be able to endure something, to bear, to tolerate. It's about having the capacity to handle difficult situations. In Hebrew, when a person wants to know how much you can handle pain and suffering, they say, Kama koach sevel yesh lecha. How much strength do you have in order to endure pain? And hence, with this emes idea that sivlois, sevel, koach sevel, that it also means the ability to endure and tolerate, the Chidushei HaRim uses this on this pasuk and says that when it says that Hashem, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu was telling Moshe Rabbeinu that he's going to take them mitachat sivlot Mitzrayim, it means he's going to take them out of this crazy extreme state they have reached. He's not only talking about removing their suffering, it's way deeper than that. He's talking about removing them from under this state that that had developed the ability to endure, and this pain and suffering in the situation they were in, they already used to it. It didn't even bother them. Hashem said, I'm first going to take you out of that state so you're sensitive to the horrible situation you are in, and you're going to start screaming to me, please save us, this is horrible. But they were numb right now. They didn't even feel that. And that's why first Hashem had to take them out of the state, then they davened, and then everything went through and HaKadosh Baruch Hu took them out. Meaning the lowest point a person could reach is that he's so desensitized to his situation. He's so numb that he doesn't even realize the horrible situation he is in. That's the danger also of physically being in a very bad situation, but even more so spiritually. And that's why it's important to always have a friend that will tell you, look what has become to you, because you're not even aware of it sometimes. Perhaps that's also related to what Chazal tell us. When a person sins all the time, he already feels it's already mutter. Nasa lo keheter. Only after Hashem took them out of this state, this desperate situation they were in that they didn't even realize, only then they were sensitive again and they cried out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu for salvation. Until that moment, they weren't even aware enough to scream out to Hashem. The Chidushei HaRim brings an incredible proof from Tehillim. Tehillim, Perek, Kuf Vav, Pasuk, Men Dalet says, Vayar betzar lahem b'shemois es rinosom, which almost sounds like an oxymoron. Hashem saw their pain, and He came to help them when He heard that they were happy. What does that mean? I thought they were in pain. How can they be happy? The answer is they were so used to their situation that they were in pain that they weren't sensitive to the fact that they were in pain, and they were even able to get to a point where they were smiling and laughing. That reveals how low they have sunk, that they're not even sensitive to their situation. We have to be aware as we go through life that we do not reach this horrible level of being numb to what's happening to us, being numb to the spiritual level. If chas v'shalom a person goes down, we have to be aware of it. We need a friend that will wake us up and get us out of the state, like HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe Rabbeinu, based on the Chidushei HaRim's pshat, that will take us out of this state. With that, we have an unbelievable understanding of why it was written such a way, why the Torah is saying that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling Moshe Rabbeinu, I will take them mitachas v'lois mitzrayim, tachas, indicating to us they were in a state that they were able to endure, they were able to bear, to tolerate the horrible situation. And Hashem's telling them, I'm going to take them away from being under this state, and hence the word mitachas, under, actually fits very nicely based on this pshat. I would like to just end off with the idea, before we say a story, that a person always has to be aware. Where am I holding? He has to do cheshbon nefesh once in a while to ensure it doesn't reach such a state. I would like to end off with a story that's adapted from Rabbi Yeshua Sova. He says the following: Rabbi Beryl Wein Zatzal, who was niftar a few months ago, recounted a story with his maternal grandfather, Rabbi Rubenstein, who was Rosh Yeshiva of Skokie. Rabbi Rubenstein and his wife saved up a lot of money, $250, which at that time, in the 50s, was a tremendous amount, and they were planning on repainting their house. This all was around the time, 1956, where the Suez Canal crisis existed, when a lot of Jews were being killed in Egypt. Rabbi Rubenstein read the news and immediately decided to call up and cancel the paint job, though he still insisted on paying the painter in full. When his confused grandson asked why, Rabbi Rubenstein explained, "How could I paint my house and enjoy myself when my brothers and sisters are suffering?" The grandson asked him, "But you don't even know these people." He said, "It doesn't matter. They are my brothers and sisters." Even though he didn't know the victims personally, he felt their pain so deeply that he couldn't proceed with his plans of painting his house. In short, it doesn't matter what happened around him, even if it was horrible things that happened day after day, like we, in Eretz Yisrael and all the world. We heard about the people that were hostages in Gaza, and during the war, we heard of people getting killed all the time. We cannot be desensitized. We have to be sensitive to it. And that's exactly what this grandfather said. Even though he didn't know the victims personally, he felt their pain so deeply that he couldn't proceed with his plans. How can I paint my house when this is going on? This incredible sensitivity on such a high level obviously comes from Torah. The more Torah a person has, the more Torah a person learns, the more a person is connected to Torah, the more they can be sensitive to everything that's happening around them and feel others' pain. This is the opposite of being tachas, a certain situation, being numb to whatever suffering situation you have being accustomed to. Torah keeps us awake and sensitive to both our own struggles and those of our fellow Jews. And it's through this sensitivity that we can continuously grow and do our job and our mission, and why HaKadosh Baruch Hu put us here. Have a good Shabbos.
This concludes another episode of the Prism of Torah. Thank you for tuning in today. We hope you enjoyed it and learned something valuable. If you did, please subscribe to the podcast and give a 5-star rating. You can also find this podcast wherever you get your podcasts, or our own website, prismoftorah.com, where we have a full archive of all our past episodes. We would like to thank Yona Vefa for the recording equipment and Ellie Podcast Productions for handling all our post-podcast productions. Join us next week for another enlightening conversation on the Prism of Torah.